The night air in Brookdale carried with it the kind of chill that gnawed through bone and skin, the kind of chill Malik had long grown used to since the day he lost everything that had once resembled a home, and as he tightened the frayed strings of his thin gray hoodie and tucked his bony hands into its shallow pockets, he tried to convince himself that tonight would be like every other night, another battle for scraps of food, another restless attempt at sleep on cardboard under the echoing groan of the old bridge that stretched over the city's east end. But fate had a way of planting storms in places where no one was looking, and tonight the storms I would center on a forgotten boy who had nothing and a billionaire who thought he had everything. Malik was only 12, though his eyes carried the weight of someone who had been forced to grow far beyond his years. They were sharp, restless eyes, always searching for the next clue of survival, eyes his mother had once told him were made for seeing truths the world ignores. His mother, Layla, had been the anchor of his small universe until 3 winters ago when the fevers came, when the coughing never stopped, and the hospital, gleaming with white walls and marble floors, turned her away because the numbers on the bill didn't match the emptiness in their pockets. Malik remembered holding her hand as she whispered, "Always look, baby, people hide things where no one wants to look," and then she was gone, leaving behind not just grief but an instruction, a compass Malik would carry into the shadows of his days. His father, broken by loss and crushed beneath his own despair, drifted into alcohol, into nights spent slumped against bar walls until he finally disappeared altogether, leaving Malik with nothing but memory, hunger, and the constant fight against the indifference of a city that glittered above him but never reached down. On this particular night, the streets pulsed with a different kind of energy, the kind that came with the grand opening of something shiny and new. Brookdale Plaza Hotel stood like a jewel against the skyline, its mirrored windows spilling light onto the wet streets as limousines lined up outside and velvet ropes kept the curious at bay. Reporters in pressed suits and women in jeweled gowns crowded the entryway, their voices rising in excitement for the unveiling of something promised to change the future of health. Malik, drawn by the warmth of lights and the smell of food drifting from the gala inside, lingered at the edges of the crowd, invisible as always, his bare feet wet from puddles and his stomach twisting with hunger. He had learned long ago that events like this sometimes meant dumpsters full of discarded delicacies once the party ended, and though humiliation stung every time he scavenged for survival, his hunger always won. Tonight, however, destiny twisted his path into something else entirely. While poking around near the loading docks earlier that evening, he had discovered a torn-open crate, its lid cracked and labels scattered on the ground. Malik's instinct was to check, always check, and among the damp papers, he found documents printed in cold black ink, words he could barely pronounce but had trained himself to sound out thanks to hours spent squinting at discarded newspapers. The more he read, the colder his blood ran. Chemical names tied to warnings, toxicity thresholds exceeded, banned in the EU, pending FDA review, withheld data, and then shipment notes addressed to Huxley Global Enterprises, the empire owned by none other than Leonard Huxley, the billionaire whose face beamed from billboards as the savior of modern wellness. Malik clutched the papers, not fully understanding every detail but knowing enough. The drink they were about to launch, the one marketed as Vitalis, wasn't safe. It was poison disguised as a miracle, and he, a boy no one ever saw, had seen the truth hidden in the trash. Now, standing just outside the gala, Malik pressed the wrinkled papers to his chest, unsure of what to do. Inside, under chandeliers and golden lights, Leonard Huxley stood at the center of attention. Tall, silver-haired, his suit tailored to perfection, Huxley embodied power that could silence governments with a single call. He spoke with charisma, his voice booming about innovation, about unlocking vitality for every human being, as he gestured to the sleek glass bottle of Vitalis on the podium. The audience erupted in applause, flashes from cameras immortalizing the moment, and waiters in white gloves prepared trays of the drink to hand to eager guests. Malik's heart hammered in his chest. He thought of his mother's last words, of her coughs that went unheard because no one cared enough to listen, and he realized if he stayed silent now, countless people would suffer, maybe die, just like her. His small body shook with fear, but the fire inside him burned hotter than his hunger, hotter than the cold seeping into his bones, and when Huxley raised the glass of Vitalis to his lips for the ceremonial first sip, Malik found his voice slicing through the air with a scream that stopped the gala dead. "Stop. It's poison." Every head turned. The music cut. Silence fell heavy as Malik's words echoed off marble and glass. At first, laughter trickled from the guests, a cruel, dismissive laughter that always followed the sight of a ragged child who dared to trespass on the world of the rich. "Street rat," someone sneered. "Get him out of here," barked another. Security moved instantly, their black suits closing in like walls, but Malik surged forward, his thin legs carrying him past the velvet rope before anyone could stop him. "It's poison. You can't drink it, it'll kill people," he cried, thrusting the crumpled papers toward the stage. For a moment, the billionaire himself looked ready to wave him off, irritation flashing across his carefully composed face, but then his eyes caught the markings on the papers Malik held. With a swift motion, Huxley snatched them from the boy's trembling hands, intending to mock the interruption by tearing them apart. But something in the codes, the chemical notations, the regulatory stamps caught his trained eye. Huxley had built empires not just on charisma but on meticulous attention to detail, and in less than a heartbeat, he recognized the authenticity of what he held. His face drained of color. His hand holding the glass froze mid-air. The cameras captured it all, the billionaire, poised to drink his miracle, suddenly paralyzed by a dirty, barefoot child's warning. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters whispered, some fumbling with their phones to snap pictures, sensing a story. Security tightened their grip on Malik's arms, ready to drag him out into the cold, but Huxley raised his hand in a sharp command. "Wait." His voice, usually unshakable, trembled just slightly, enough to draw further silence over the room. He glanced at the boy, then back at the papers, then at the shining bottle of Vitalis. His empire, his reputation, everything hung in the balance, and though pride battled in his chest, reason clawed harder. The boy's words had struck a crack in the perfect facade he had built, and the truth had slipped through. For the first time in decades of commanding rooms filled with power, Leonard Huxley hesitated, not because of rivals or governments, but because of a boy who had nothing but courage and the truth in his hands. Malik's chest heaved as he stared up at the man who had the power to crush him with a gesture, waiting to see if he would be silenced like his mother's pleas had been silenced, or if, for the first time in years, someone would finally hear him.